61 duels. 61 times he stood in front of another man with a sword. 61 times he walked away. The other man didn't. Not once. Not a single time in his entire life did Miyamoto Musashi lose a fight. And here's what makes that number genuinely unsettling. He wasn't fighting farmers or drunk soldiers. He was fighting the best swordsmen in Japan. Men who had trained their entire lives for exactly this. Men whose schools had produced legends for generations. He beat all of them, sometimes with a wooden sword, sometimes with an oar he carved on the boat ride over, once probably, with nothing but the look in his eyes. This is not a story about talent. It's a story about what a human being becomes when they decide, completely, absolutely without compromise, to master one thing. Drawn from history. Japan in 1584 was a country on fire. Warlords fought for control of every province. Villages burned. Families disappeared overnight. Loyalty shifted with the wind. The samurai code existed, but so did the reality underneath it. That power went to whoever was most willing to use violence, and that the gap between honor and survival was often just a single bad decision. Into this world, in a small village in Harima province, a boy was born. His name was Bennosuke. His mother died when he was young. His father, Munisai, was a respected swordsman, skilled, cold, and by most accounts deeply disappointed in his son. The relationship was tense and distant, the kind of silence between two people that eventually becomes its own kind of damage. Bennosuke grew up rough, not the polished samurai of paintings and legend, wild, unruly, quick to fight and slow to stop. He didn't fit anywhere. He didn't belong to anything. But there was something burning inside him that none of that could touch. An obsession, not with honor, not with serving a lord, with something more personal and more dangerous than either. He wanted to be the best swordsman who had ever lived. Not the most honorable, not the most respected, the best. And he would spend the next 50 years finding out what that actually meant. At 13 years old, he fought his first duel. His opponent was a wandering samurai named Arima Kihei, a trained adult from a prestigious school, experienced, confident, fully expecting to humiliate a child and move on. Bennosuke didn't use technique. He didn't use finesse. He attacked with the ferocity of something feral, overwhelming his opponent before the man could apply anything he had spent years learning. Arima Kihei died on the ground. The boy standing over him was 13. That was the moment everything locked into place. At 16, the Battle of Sekigahara consumed Japan. October 1600, over 160,000 warriors converging on a single plain. The future of the entire country decided in a single catastrophic day. Bennosuke, now calling himself Musashi, fought on the western side, the losing side, the army that was crushed. How he survived is unknown. The historical record goes quiet at exactly that moment. What we do know is that he walked off that battlefield alone. No clan, no lord, no title, no money. Surrounded by the wreckage of an army, in a country now ruled by people he had just fought against. Most men in that position found a way to blend in, to bow, to make peace with the new order. Musashi walked away from all of it. He became a Musha Shugyo, a warrior on pilgrimage. No fixed home, no permanent allegiance. Just a sword, open roads, and an unbroken commitment to testing himself against the best opponents he could find. The wandering years began, and they were brutal. He showed up to dojos unannounced and challenged whoever was inside. He traveled from province to province, fighting students, teachers, masters. He developed a reputation not for elegance or refinement, but for something stranger and harder to categorize. He was unpredictable. He showed up late to duels, deliberately to disrupt his opponent's rhythm before a single blow was struck. He used wooden swords instead of steel, which felt like an insult until you realized the wooden sword hit just as hard in his hands. He began experimenting with fighting two swords simultaneously, one long, one short, which violated every principle of traditional schools, and somehow kept working anyway. Each duel taught him something. Each opponent revealed a gap, a weakness, a pattern. He wasn't just fighting, he was studying. building an understanding of combat that went deeper than technique, deeper than speed, deeper than strength. He was learning how the human mind worked under pressure, and he was learning how to break it. Then came Kyoto, and the Yoshioka school. The Yoshioka had once been sword instructors to the shogun himself. Their reputation was built over generations. They were, by any reasonable measure, the most prestigious martial arts school in Japan. Musashi challenged them. The elder brother, Seijuro, accepted. He arrived at the appointed place, composed and precise, a man whose entire identity was bound up in the tradition he represented. Musashi arrived late, hours late, long enough for Seijuro's legendary composure to begin cracking, long enough for impatience to move into his body, into his grip, into the set of his jaw. When Musashi finally appeared, the duel lasted seconds. One strike, left shoulder, Seijuro's arm shattered. The elder brother retired to a monastery and never touched a sword again. The younger brother, Denshichiro, challenged Musashi the next day, hot-blooded, vengeful, furious in a way that made him dangerous and predictable at the same time. Musashi arrived late again, let the rage build, then hit him once in the head, hard enough to end it immediately. Two of Japan's most celebrated swordsmen, 2 duels, 2 decisive defeats. The Yoshioka school never recovered, but the clan wasn't finished. What happened next is one of the most remarkable things in the historical record. The Yoshioka sent a 12-year-old boy to challenge Musashi, their new leader, the last of the family line. The duel was scheduled for nightfall. Musashi didn't trust it. He arrived early, concealed himself near the temple grounds and waited. He was right to wait. The boy arrived with a small army, swordsmen, archers, men with rifles. The child was bait. Before the ambush could spring, Musashi moved. He killed the boy in a single blow, then fought his way through the men surrounding him and disappeared into the rice fields beyond. The Yoshioka school was finished. Musashi was 21 years old. April 1612, Ganryu Island. This is the duel that history remembers, the one that became legend. Sasaki Kojiro was everything Musashi was not. Younger, handsome, refined. He had earned the honor of being sword instructor to one of Japan's most powerful clans. He had a home, a title, a reputation that had been built through legitimate channels rather than wandering the road and fighting anyone who looked at him. His signature technique, the Tsubame Gaishi, the swallow counter, was considered by many to be impossible to defend against. A lightning-fast downward cut that reversed into an upward slash in the same motion. He had reportedly perfected it by cutting swallows out of the air mid-flight. The duel was scheduled for 8 in the morning. Musashi was still asleep when officials came to collect him. He ate breakfast without urgency. He dressed without haste. On the boat to the island, he picked up an oar and started carving it into a sword with his knife. He arrived hours late. Kojiro was waiting on the beach, surrounded by witnesses, his composure eroding with every minute that passed. When he saw Musashi step off the boat holding a roughly shaped piece of wood, he shouted across the sand, "You dare come late and face me with that?" Musashi said nothing. Then he looked at the scabbard Kojiro had thrown to the ground, a gesture meaning the duel was to the death. He smiled. A man who expects to survive doesn't discard his scabbard. Kojiro's rage broke through his control for just a second. That was enough. Both men struck at the same instant. Kojiro's blade was faster. It cut the cloth tied around Musashi's forehead cleanly in two, but Musashi's wooden oar had already connected with Kojiro's temple. Kojiro collapsed. Musashi stood over him until the last movement stopped. Then he turned to the witnesses, bowed with formal calm, walked back to the boat, and left. He never fought another duel to the death. He didn't need to. What happens to a man who has proven everything he set out to prove, who has tested himself against every opponent worth testing and won? Most men find new battles to justify themselves, new enemies to create. Musashi went quiet. In his 30s and 40s, something in him shifted. The restlessness didn't disappear, but it turned inward. He began teaching, carefully, selectively. He began painting, not casual sketches, but work of genuine power. Birds, landscapes, Buddhist figures, each one precise and alive in the same way his sword work was precise and alive. He sculpted, he wrote poetry, he practiced calligraphy. People were confused. Japan's most dangerous man was spending his time making art. But Musashi had understood something. Mastery. In one thing teaches you mastery in everything. The discipline required to perfect a sword technique, and the discipline required to capture the spirit of a bird with a brushstroke. They come from the same place, the same quality of attention, the same refusal to accept good enough. It's all connected. In 1643, at around 60 years old and dying from what was likely cancer, Musashi retreated to a cave on Mount Iwato. He sat alone in the darkness, brush in hand, and began to write. The Book of 5 Rings. Not a technical manual, not a collection of fighting tips, a philosophy. An entire way of seeing the world, built from 60 years of direct experience with what humans are actually like when everything is on the line. He wrote about timing, not speed, but rhythm, knowing when to move and when to stay still, when aggression serves and when it destroys. He wrote about the ego. Think lightly of yourself and deeply of the world. The warrior obsessed with proving himself is already defeated. He wrote about awareness. Do not let your spirit become inactive. Even in peace, the mind must remain sharp. And most simply, most directly, the way is in training. No shortcuts, no secret techniques, only endless disciplined practice. A week before he died, he wrote a second document. 21 principles for walking alone. One of them, do not fear death. Another, never stray from the way. He died in June 1645, alone. No family at his side, no elaborate ceremony. Just a man who had lived entirely by his own code, releasing that code into the world one last time before going quiet. 400 years later, military academies study his tactics. Executives read his strategies in boardrooms. Artists apply his principles to their craft. Athletes build training systems around his philosophy. A 17th century samurai from a village that no longer exists on maps that have long since been redrawn. His words still sharp, his silence still present. He spent his whole life asking one question. What does a human being become when they refuse to accept any limit on what they can be? The answer is 61 duels and no losses. The answer is a book that outlived every opponent he ever faced. The answer is still being written. Thanks for watching. If you liked the video, please subscribe and leave a like. You can also write in the comments which historical topics you'd like to see next. See you in the next video.